From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
A transfer of ownership with the operators of Roger Williams Medical Center and Fatima Hospital was given the green light by Attorney General Peter Neronha this week, but his decision also shed light on what he says was a company that was more focused on wealth than the health of the hospitals it ran. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White alongside my colleague, 12 News Politics editor Ted Nesi, and here to discuss with us that decision is Attorney General Peter Neronha. General, it's good to see you. Welcome back to the studio.
Good to see you both.
So I want to begin with that conversation with Prospect. You approved an ownership transfer in the company that owns Fatima and Roger Williams. At a news conference this week announcing the agreement, you took aim at Prospect, and I want to play a moment from your announcement. Take a listen.
At that point in my discussions with Prospect, they were not cooperating with me. If you want to talk to me about a resolution, I need to understand your numbers. You need to share information with me. You need to be candid with me. Don't tell me it's all rosy and fine when I know that it isn't. And so when I come up with a number under those circumstances, I'm going to err to my good and their bad.
General, I've been covering you for a while now, and I've heard that stern tone from you before, and it's when you've talked about elected officials who broke the public's trust in a criminal case. Is that what you think happened here, that Prospect broke the public's trust based on your review?
Well, look, certainly they took steps that benefited them financially, meaning their owners financially. You know, the company is the company. It's who underlies the company that really matters.
A for-profit company, we should point out.
Exactly. It's a for-profit company where there's a private equity firm that owns 60% of it and two wealthy individuals who own the other 40%. So yeah, what they did in this case was they benefited themselves at the expense of the overall, in my view, the overall financial health of the company, nationwide company, Prospect Medical Holdings, based in California, that owns our two hospitals. In my view of that is basically this: if you're going to get into healthcare, then you need to care about it. It's not the same thing as owning, you know, a sporting goods store or a chain that sells housewares. It's different in healthcare, and as regulators, we need to hold people who own healthcare institutions to account when they don't do the right thing.
I read the 70 pages, the decision, which was almost like an investigation, a court ruling in a way, talking about kind of the financial engineering that went on inside of Prospect, which clearly raised alarms for you and is why you put these conditions in place. I was just curious, first of all, did you meet in the course of this any of the top executives, Sam Lee, David Topper, the people at Leonard Green, or was it all done between the lawyers in your office and the lawyers from there?
Yeah, it was done at the staff level. I mean, certainly I was briefed, you know, as we went along, and certainly I read the materials, you know, the transcripts as they were being, you know, transcribed and sent along the chain, you know, the chain up to me. So yeah, I was intimately familiar with what was going on here, and I certainly had direct conversations with their counsel, particularly local counsel. And look, the bottom line is that everything, you know, eventually comes to me, and I tend to focus more as the decision point comes closer. And so for me, that really arrived in late 2020 and in early 2021. And the more I dug into it, the more concerned I became. It was pretty clear to me that we were going to have to take really significant, aggressive steps to allow this to happen that would give me the security, frankly, give the hospitals the security that they knew they were going to be there and be able to deliver health care into the foreseeable future. And if we couldn't achieve that, I wasn't going to approve it.
They seemed shocked when your final decision came out. They, as we know, they put that press release out saying they might close the hospitals, and then you guys were in court, and then it got quiet as the actual negotiations happened. I mean, did they... You know, you had a comment at the press conference. I was at the press conference. And you said something about, as regulators, you can't get rolled. Did you feel like they thought they were going to be able to roll you until then?
Well, look, you know, I can't get inside their heads, but I know this, that as an organization, we can't afford to be rolled. When we get rolled, the people of Rhode Island suffer. What I mean by rolled is, you know, we're just rubber stamping something. Look, if I look at the materials and I do a deep dive and I have real concerns, it's incumbent on me to do two things: let the public know about those concerns and take steps to address them. I don't know what they were thinking when they withdrew their application, you know, on that Thursday night, early Friday morning. Maybe they thought they could avoid, you know, the public hearing the conclusions that I'd reached. I thought it was really important, particularly after the steps they took publicly, for me to explain to the public why I was taking the steps that I was taking, why it was necessary to act now and not later. I really feel like if we had not acted now, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years from now, we'd be waking up and facing a situation which we couldn't address then in the same way we address now.
As we said, Prospect is a for-profit company, and the two hospitals, Fatima and Roger Williams, they're money losers. And conventional wisdom is companies don't like to lose money. Are you concerned that ultimately Prospect is going to look at this and close up those hospitals because they're just hemorrhaging cash?
Yeah, well, look, for right now, there's $80 million in escrow that only we control, that my office controls through a trustee that will keep those hospitals open. They're committed to keeping them open
How long
for
would
at least 5
$80 million
years.
last for 2 hospitals?
$80 million, it's going to last for 5 years. That $80 million, that's how we arrived at that number. What's it going to take to cover operating losses as they have historically been, looking back 5 years, and what's necessary in terms of capital investments to keep those hospitals running at a high level for the next 5 years. So for 5 years, we've got $80 million to make sure that that happens. You know, you're asking a long-term question, Tim, and it's the right question. You know, it's not just these hospitals. How do hospitals everywhere in Rhode Island and around the country survive long-term if we don't fix the underlying structural problems as to how hospitals get paid? You know, there are very few hospitals anywhere that are doing great. And that's a broader conversation that we need to have. So when I talk about a healthcare strategy that we don't have in Rhode Island with respect to people who have studied the issues so far, that's what I'm talking about. Understanding the underlying structural problems and then figuring out a plan to deal with them. We need to get there as a state. We're not there yet.
I was struck as I looked at this and as I talked to national experts who cover Prospect and the other states where they operate, that it doesn't sound like many states have a law with the teeth that Rhode Island's Hospital Conversion Act has. And that passed back in 1997, and it's what was really empowering you here. As you looked around, is your office unusually empowered in a hospital transaction when you compare to what your counterparts in other states can or can't do in these kind of transactions?
Yeah, I don't know, Ted, to be candid. You know, I was laser focused on our situation here. You know, I think this, you know, I feel limited only by my imagination in terms of what the office can do. You know, we have this tremendous ability to act on behalf of the people of the state. There's this common law power called the parens patriae power that we can use on behalf of the people of the state. So I only feel limited by the risk that I'm willing to take to exercise that power. So I can't speak for my colleagues around the country. Certainly it was great to have the Hospital Conversion Act here to use in the way that we did it. But the other thing too is it's great to have the tools, but they're only effective if you're prepared to use them, if you're prepared to stand up when you think you need to. And I think as regulators in the state, my office, regulators elsewhere, need to be prepared to take those tough stands and withstand the criticism. Look, you know, when we made, our initial decision got out, there was all this talk about closing the hospitals. To me, that was a tactic to try to put pressure on me to take a different position. Look, had they tried to close those hospitals, we would have fought back very aggressively. You know, as I said to the Department of Health, if we think there's any danger in someone being able to close a hospital without our approval, then we need to take steps to make sure that we fix that problem. So look, it's great to have the tools, but you got to be prepared to use them.
So
when
that's
necessary.
interesting, though. You don't think you need the act necessarily to get involved in a hospital issue like this. You could have done it anyway.
Look, it helps to have it, Tim. That's clear. But I don't look, when I see a problem, I'm trying to come up with ways for us to address it. And had we not had this tool and I saw this coming, I would have tried to do something about it. You know, we're trying to use that. We've got a really bad, for example, consumer protection statute here. We're trying to change it at the General Assembly. I hope to accomplish that this year. I've talked about it a lot, but it's really weak because of a case that goes back to the 80s. You know, I'm not though, in a significant consumer protection case, just going to say, look, I can never get that case overturned. We're going to bring the case anyway and see if the Supreme Court or Superior Court will look at the law differently. You know, look, when you're in my position, you have the luxury of being able to do that if you choose to do it. And I think it's really important that we take those steps.
One final Prospect question, because there's a bunch of topics we want to cover today. I know you're going to say, you know, hindsight is 20/20, and I wasn't the Attorney General. But based on what you now know about Prospect as a company, was it a mistake to let them ever get control of these 2 hospitals?
Yeah, look, let me say this, Ted. I think it's difficult to be successful running a hospital when you're a nonprofit institution. When you let for-profit companies into healthcare, and we're not just seeing this in Rhode Island, we're seeing it around the country, you know, you're taking on risk. There are 2 ways that for-profit private equity firms make money. They either run a great business and make money off better profits, or they take on debt, is what happened here. Let's be clear. What happened here is they took on debt, took out loans, put the proceeds of those loans in their pockets, but they're going to make money, right? And so if you look at healthcare, we've already talked about it. Healthcare is a tough place to make money. So if a private equity firm or a for-profit company is going to come into healthcare, you know they're going to make money. The problem is going to be, in my view, that that's going to come at the expense of the healthcare system and ultimately the people of Rhode Island.
We are actually going to have more questions about hospitals because they've been a lot in the news. But I do want to briefly change the topic. Your office applied the state's Hate Crime Sentencing Act in a case against a Michelle Longo who was arrested by Narragansett police accused of berating a black family outside a restaurant. What went into that decision?
Yeah, look, the same thing that goes into every decision, particularly now, as we put together a civil rights unit that is really developing the expertise to understand where those laws apply and where they don't. So we looked at that case, and the first question is, was it a crime? This is something that gets lost a lot in our conversations about quote-unquote hate crimes. Under Rhode Island law, you have to first establish that the crime was committed. An assault, a disorderly conduct, which is what's alleged in the case we're talking about, a robbery, whatever. You've got to establish that a robbery took place, and then if it did take place, then the question is, if you can convict the person of that crime, what motivated it? In cases where those crimes are motivated by prejudice, hate, bias, then we're going to apply the sentencing enhancement. It's important for us to do that, and we're going to continue to do it.
I want to ask you, the pushback you hear to that kind of prosecution sometimes, what is alleged that Michelle Longo is alleged to have done, I think very few people would defend the way she allegedly treated this family. But people say, well, but when you criminalize speech, you run into First Amendment issues, and I know you can't yell fire in a crowded theater and all that. But how did you think about that?
Sure.
The question of this. In the end, it's words that came out of this woman. She didn't hit anybody. She didn't wield a gun or something like that. She used words.
Yeah, look, I have two answers to that: one legal and one as a person. On the legal front, we looked at the law in Rhode Island, and the law makes very plain that when you use words like this, it's a disorderly conduct. And it's a criminal offense. The law's clear on that, both at the U.S. Supreme Court level and the Rhode Island Supreme Court level. So we did our research, and plainly, as the judge found yesterday, we were right on that issue. As a person, I'll say this: they're just words, but to that family, those words really hurt. Put yourself in the shoes of that family, a black mother and father and two daughters who just want to have a meal as a family of four like everybody else, and that's what they were confronted with. So that's a significant matter to me, and we treated it as such, and I'm hopeful for a good outcome.
Final question on this. You're supporting legislation that would make it easier to apply the hate crime sentencing enhancement. What's wrong with it right now?
Yeah, right now it's not clear, Tim, whether or not in a mixed motive case. So, again, you have to prove the crime. Then for the sentencing enhancement, you have to prove the motive. What if the crime is motivated in part by hate? And in part by something else, anger, whatever. I'm thinking of a case in particular, a boundary dispute, say. If you've got a mixed motive, does the statute still apply? We have always thought that it does, but we're trying to clarify that in the law so that a judge won't struggle with that issue.
So right now, the hate has to be the full intent as the way the law is read.
Well, it's unclear, Tim. We view as the law is currently written, based on precedent in other states, that a mixed motive is fine with our law, but we want to clarify it because in the cases we've already brought, I believe some judges have struggled with that concept.
And do you think, real quick, in your conversations or your staff's conversations with the General Assembly, do you have any level of confidence that you'll be able to change the law right now?
Look, we're having lots of discussions with the General Assembly about a lot of bills. I think that's not the only issue in the civil rights bill that needs to be passed. But I'm reasonably confident about it, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, we're going to take a break here on Newsmakers. When we come back, the Attorney General has talked about getting more police departments body-worn cameras, but they're expensive. We'll see where that stands when we come back on Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White, alongside 12 News Politics editor Ted Nesi. Our guest this week is Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Neronha. Ted?
Let's go back to hospitals. Hopefully the viewers are interested in the topic too, because it's taking a lot of time, but it's a huge and important topic, and I know you think that too. You have another big hospital transaction pending in your office. Your office is looking at, and this is the huge Lifespan Care New England, Brown University helping out merger. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, they've gone rather quiet, at least from a reporter public-facing perspective in the last couple months since the last sort of round of announcements and everything. Where do things stand with that in your office right now?
Yeah, it's an ongoing review, So the way that the review process goes, from an antitrust perspective and a Hospital Conversion Act perspective, which is a bunch of criteria that we've talked a little bit about, the process is get the information so that we can analyze the relevant issues. Obviously, were those two parties to merge along with Brown, there would be a significant market share that they would have, in Rhode Island in healthcare. So we need to analyze, the effects of that large market share. And then there are lots of other ancillary issues that we'll need to get into. So we're in that process. It's not a quick one. A Prospect wasn't a quick one, and while that was a very serious issue for those two hospitals, very concerning, this is frankly, a much broader issue, which raises, again, potential antitrust issues that are going to take some time to sort out, fully understand, and then reach a conclusion about. And remember, there are a number of possibilities. One is no approval at all, approval as suggested, or approved with conditions, and so. There are lots of potential outcomes here, and we'll have to see where we end up in the end.
Based on what you said in the first half of the show, it sounds like you see, you mentioned imagination. You see a pretty wide role for where the Attorney General's office can shape or nudge how they set it up, where they put everything, what goes where, if they spend something. I mean, it sounds like you think you have you can take a very broad view of what you do as conditions if you give them approval.
Well, that's true, but it doesn't need my imagination for that one. The Hospital Conversion Act and the Rhode Island's antitrust laws give us that power. So that's exactly what we're going to be relying on as we analyze that issue. Take those tools, those legal tools that we have, and see whether the proposal can be done, within the criteria that are in those two statutes, the antitrust statute and the Hospital Conversion Act. It's way too soon to know where that's going to land, but I will tell you that that we are going to do our due diligence there. I don't look at our role as being one of a rubber stamp. We've got to know and understand this transaction as well or better than the ones that are proposing it. We've got a really strong healthcare team at the office now, and I'm convinced we're going to reach a conclusion, whatever it is, that will be in the best interest of the people of the state.
A separate hospital issue, your office launched an investigation into the troubled Eleanor Slater Hospital system, which has been in the spotlight over questions on patient discharges and bookkeeping. When should we expect the conclusion of your investigation?
Tim, I really can't say. I mean, I think, when you're looking at, as we are, sort of individual outcomes for patients, it takes time to understand per patient what happened. And what the outcome was, or what the outcome might be down the road. So I can't really give you a timeline. Again, it's more important for me to get it right, and to make sure we fully understand the scope of the issues out there. And look, there's a lot that goes into the Eleanor Slater Hospital in terms of potential issues. So we're still a long way, I think, from fully sorting that out.
Can you rule out criminal liability?
Oh, look, I don't really want to get into whether it would be or not. I think one of the problems, Tim, is this: that as soon as I go where you'd like me to go, I think there's a reaction that would not be responsible for me to kind of put out there. Look, we're getting the information, we're going to analyze it. If it falls within a criminal case, obviously we would bring one. If it's a civil matter, we'll bring one. If it's a position, and sometimes we end up there, like in the issue of the vaccines with the hospitals back in January. If we get to a place where advocacy is what's necessary, we'll land there. But it's too early to tell exactly where that's going.
Last question on this, sorry. Eli Sherman told me that the hospital uses a paper-based records keeping system, and some patients have been there, I don't need to tell you, for decades. Has the way they keep their records been a challenge for your office in doing your review?
Well, look, let me just say this. Again, we're looking at each individual patient that may require, frankly, review or attention from our office. And certainly understanding the background of that patient and understanding the circumstances, however they were treated at Eleanor Slater, is really important to us. So look, I don't want to get in a situation where I'm saying, the way they operated was, at this point, the way they operated was beneficial or not. But I will say this: obviously, relying on paper records in this day and age is more of a challenge than if you're relying on electronic records, which is plainly where the industry's going.
I have to ask you one more. Listening to that on Lifespan Care New England, you don't sound like you want to be rushed on these things, and there is no timeline, I don't think, for when you have to be done with the Lifespan Care New England review. I believe they've said they want to get it done this year. Maybe I'm misremembering, but it's already June. Do you see a decision on the Lifespan Care New England merger this calendar year?
Yeah, I don't know, Ted. Look, here's the thing. I've said this to everybody who comes before us as a regulator. Do not try to convince me of a state of play that is not real. Don't come in and try to tell me that this will work when I look at it and know that it won't. Don't tell me your financials are this when we read them and we know that they're not. So a lot of the speed with which this review will go forward will depend on the information we get, how quickly we get it, and whether it's complete and whether it's accurate. You know, look, what happened in Prospect was I was being told one thing in December by the outside parties when I first started to drill down. By January, February, and March, I knew that that was not reality, and we needed to take a different approach. The same kind of thing, you know, exists here. The more the parties are upfront and quick with the information they give us, the more willing they are to understand the issues and address them with us, the faster it'll go.
Police departments say one of the big hurdles to implementing body-worn cameras is the cost. So we're talking equipment, data storage, even maybe added personnel, be it legal or IT. Last year in an interview, you told me that you were going to help departments tackle that issue. Where does it stand? Yeah,
we're working really hard on that. You know, I've got a really good group in the office that is working hard with the Police Chiefs Association to put together a plan. That plan has been presented to the General Assembly and the governor. I'm really optimistic about making a lot of progress there. You know, hopefully very soon. You know, we have really lent ourselves to identifying sources of funds. We know there's going to have to be some taxpayer funds. Frankly, they're going to have to be appropriated for that.
So it'll have to be a budget item.
It'll have to be a budget item in part. Yeah, we're going to put money in that we recover as well to help this get started. But yeah, we've got to make an investment. Look, if we want policing to be transparent, and through that transparency build confidence in our policing, body cameras in my mind are a strong way to do that. If you can see it, if you know what happened by being able to look at it, then we all know what happened, and we can then draw our conclusions about what needs to be done as a result. So that's really important to me.
But a big question is who can see it, and through your prism, you want to see it as an investigatory body if there were a crime committed or not. The release of videos to the public has been a major issue across the country, and in some communities they balance the public interest much heavier than the risk to an actual investigation, because some cities might be on the brink of a tinderbox because of some event that happened. If an event like that happened in Rhode Island at one of the police departments, would you support an early release of body-worn camera footage? Yeah,
look, if I thought it was absolutely necessary because of the conditions you're describing, I would strongly consider it. We have ways of addressing that. One way is to get our initial investigation done very quickly. You know, what you don't want to have is go out to talk to a witness as to who saw something and they've seen video somewhere, right? Because then, you know, if you're going to bring a case, the defense attorney is going to challenge that witness as to what's the basis of their testimony. Is it seeing the video, or did they see it with their own two eyes? But if we move quickly and get our initial investigation at least done very quickly, then we're in a position where we can turn that material over and not jeopardize our case. I mean, that's what I don't want to be in a situation where putting something out there too quickly. And by the way, when I say too quickly, I'm not talking months. I'm going to be talking just a matter of days or a week. I want to make sure that if I have a case, that I can build a case that I can defend, prosecute, and get a good result if that's what justice is.
But it's a public record, in your view?
Yeah, no question, Tim. It's not a matter of whether it's a public record, it's when it gets released. Now, obviously, if we look at it in the first instance, and in my view, there's no possibility of a criminal offense, let it fly as quickly as possible. But if I think there's a case there, or I'm not sure, I want to get our investigation done quickly and then be in a position to release it.
Sticking with police, one of the big end of session debates that's ramping up is what to do about the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights. There's a lot of pending proposals to reform. Some people want to repeal it. Are you supporting any of the current bills as you think the best option to pass into law for changing the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights?
Yeah, Ted, you know, I was on the commission that was chaired by Senator Metz that took up a lot of the Leobor proposed changes. Look, I think that at least was a starting point, you know, that those recommendations, which were embodied in one of the bills up there. You know, look, we want to be able to empower police chiefs to take disciplinary action that matters, that will both address the situation at hand and have a deterrence effect. We need that. We also want to make sure that if there is an appeal before a board, that the board is broad enough that the decisions are such that we can rely on them. You know, look, you know, I don't have a particular stake in that. You know, those issues of police discipline don't come to me unless they become criminal offenses. Then Leobor has no impact on what it is that I do. But I think it's a discussion worth having, and that'll shake out, I expect, over the next couple of weeks up there.
You talk to law enforcement frequently, obviously, because of the work that you're doing. You know, there is pushback in the wake of the civil rights protests over the last year, that it's gotten to the point where, officers are concerned about their ability to do their jobs, or that it's allowing for rising crime? Do you have any concerns like that the bar is now going too far that way, or do you think that's overblown?
Look, based on what happened last summer and what has happened since, it was the right time, frankly too late, for us to have the discussion we're having about what policing means and what it can be and what it should be. I addressed the Municipal Police Academy a week ago today, actually. And we hear a lot, and it's true, it's hard to be a police officer today, but it's been hard for the public too for a long time. So the way I tried to capture it for those new graduates was this: yeah, it's hard to be a police officer today, but it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to, in a sense, re-envision policing, to do it really well, have high standards, hold each other to account, recognize, I said to them, recognize that you're going to be filmed when you're doing your job, either by yourself, when you got your body cam on, or by somebody else. And at that moment in time, they were all pretty young and their grandparents were in the audience. Think at that moment in time that your grandfather or grandmother standing next to you and act in a way that they would be proud of. That's where we need to be when it comes to policing.
Attorney General Peter Neronha, thank you very much for joining us. For Ted Nesi, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.